Right, hello and welcome back to the channel. I will say up front that this is not the video I was intending to go up next. I have got a couple in the pipeline and one of those would have been tonight's video, but all other priorities have been rescinded to bring you news about a magnificent new addition in MFME v6. And hold on to your underpants here, chaps, because Autoplay is here. So yeah, okay, you may be thinking, that fuck sounds pretty dull, but believe me, this is anything but dull. And I'll explain to you why this is by asking a couple of questions. 1, what is Autoplay? And 2, why do we want it? So, Autoplay, that's the easier question out of the two. What is Autoplay? We're all familiar with Autoplay. In the UK arcades, we're all familiar with, your granny low-techs, your bar X's, your multiplayer cabs with the top box, where you've got an autoplay button, you put a few quid and you press autoplay. And there are two different sorts of autoplay. There's some that'll just kind of press start for you and then wait for an input when you get nudges or holds. And there are some that will do like a full auto. You can literally just like put, a tenner in, press autoplay and it will play itself. It'll spin the reels, it'll hold, it'll nudge, it'll just do the whole thing for you and you can see what you've got at the end of it. And then in the online arena, on online slots, casino slots, we're all familiar with autoplay there. Just about every single software supplier has an implementation of autoplay where you can press a button, you can configure some settings, and the slot will basically play itself, because what you're after there with online slots is it's all about the features, it's all about the bonus rounds. The stuff in between doesn't really matter. Let's be honest, it's a bit boring. You just want to get to the bonus and the feature rounds. So autoplay makes sense there, and it makes sense on low-techs as well, because there's not really much to low-techs, apart from, your golden games and all that kind of shit where you can fuck around with them. But the idea, certainly conceptually, with a low-tech is there's not much to them. So it's almost like you put your money in and you see if you're going to get lucky or not. So with high-techs, now high-techs have never had autoplay. So what we're looking at here is a high-tech AWP. That's your smaller jackpot machines, currently at £100, previously at £70, £35 and so on. And you've also got your high-tech clubbers, which have had the bigger jackpots, even going back to the late 80s. I think they had £100, £150 jackpots, up to 200 quid, 250 quid, 400 quid, 500 quid over the years. But you've got two broad categories of high-tech machines. And what we're looking at here is a high-tech AWP, amusement with prizes machines. And these have never had autoplay. Well, with the possible exception of George. I mean, there were certainly some Bar Crest even. Sorry, I'm full of a fucking cold and I'm a bit whacked out on Beecham's All-in-One snake bite and cocodamol. There were some Bar Crest clubbers in the early 90s, I think, that had the press G for George button, where George would allegedly play himself and do, well, the semi-correct things, and anyone who ever pressed G for George on a Bar Crest clubber realised within about 3 seconds he had no fucking idea what he was doing. You're like, you know what, George? Get out of here. I'm going to do this by myself. So conceptually, we've never had autoplay on high-tech machines. And why would you want autoplay on high-tech machines? Because they're all about doing your own thing on the reels, the nudges, the holds, the setups, the features, little traps, little tricks, skill stops, all that kind of thing, holding reels on a respin. They don't suit the autoplay sort of mold, if you will, so they never had autoplay. So that kind of leads into question 2 here, which is, why would you want autoplay? Why would we want autoplay on high-tech machines? It doesn't make sense. They've never had them in the real world, so why would we add them into the emulator? So There's a very simple answer to that, and it kind of links into what for me is the biggest weakness of Fruit Machine emulators ever. And I'm going back over the whole history of Fruit Machine emulation here, going back to the original release of MPU 3.4 that I was made aware of back in 2001. The other emulators that were released over the years, we have BF Emulator, JPEmu, Amber. It doesn't matter, the name of the emulator is irrelevant. It's just a weakness of Fruit Machine emulation, because Fruit Machine emulators are a unique proposition in the world of emulation, in that history is important to them. What has happened before is instructive to what is going to happen now and what is going to happen in the future. And that doesn't happen with other forms of emulation. You just take, I don't know, MAME. Let's take MAME as an emulator. You just load the ROM for whatever game it is that you want to play into MAME, and you play it. So at a very basic level, let's take Space Invaders. You load Space Invaders into MAME. Now, it doesn't matter if that has been played for a minute or an hour or a day or 1,000 years. You load that ROM in, it's going to do exactly the same thing. I mean, outside of machines that maybe save high scores or something like that, as some video games do, that's the only thing that's persistent about them. Fundamentally, the game itself is always the same. It doesn't matter. There's no sense of history to them. They don't remember what's happened before. They don't plan for what's coming in the future. They just are at a point in time. And that holds true for random games as well. If you emulate a random machine, it doesn't matter how long it's been running for. You just generate random numbers and you get your result, and that's fine. What's unique about Fruit Machines, and that's clubbers, low-techs, high-techs, whatever. What's unique about these is that they are compensated. That is, that they actively seek out their target percentage. So they know what's happened in the past, that controls what they do in the present, and there's things that they sort of know in their code are going to happen in the future. And the point about that is that takes time to happen. That needs a fair wedge of cash for a compensated machine to settle down into its natural state. Now, a very obvious example of this is what we're looking at here. Now, this is the £70 AWP mega deal or no deal. And all the time I've been yapping here, I have not touched my keyboard. I have not touched my mouse. I have made no inputs whatsoever. This thing is playing itself. And if you look up here, you can see that the cashbot value has been very slowly going up. Now, this is one of the videos that I've got coming up on my channel. And earlier today, I put £1,200 through it manually to get the 50p and £1 cash pots maxed out. And it wasn't much fun, I'll be honest with you, because it was just kind of spade work to get the machine to the point I wanted it to be so that I could do the video on it. But out of the box, from a RAM reset, which is how we generally download Fruit Machine layouts, they're either on a RAM reset or not far off a RAM reset, like £100, £200 from as they would come out of the factory. So that they're not in their natural state. So what I was trying to do here is build the cash pots up, because this machine has 3 different cash pots. It has a 25p cash pot, a 50p cash pot, and a £1 cash pot. Now, the £1 cash pot wasn't too painful to do because it builds up quite quickly on a quid a go. On 50p a go, it goes up 10p at a time, and fairly irregularly at that. It's not like every single credit. Sometimes you can go, 5, 6, 7 credits and it won't even put 10p into it. I did both of those manually, and it took me £1,200 of play to get those 2 cash pots maxed out. And then I just couldn't face doing it on 25p. This 25p cash pot earlier today was on a £5. And you can see how slowly it's been going up since I started this video. And I've been yapping for 10 minutes already. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do the video with the 50p and the £1 cash pots. That'll do. The 20p I'll just talk about. But then I saw something over at Desert Island Fruits talking about an autoplay feature in MFME v6. I was like, what? There's an autoplay now, really? So yes, here it is. Get over to Desert Island Fruits. There's a post by Reg here about Star Wars. He talks about autoplay here, and there's a specific topic about it here as well, where he goes through the settings. And well, I'll be honest, I read that last night, but I'd had a couple of small sherries, so it all looked a bit complicated. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'll revisit that tomorrow. Then stupidly put £1,200 manually through Megadond, and then revisited this and was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I should have paid more attention to that before I started, because what this feature allows you to do, and it is brand new in MFME v6, it allows you to get these things to play themselves. And that is harder than it may sound, because for a low-tech or an online casino, certainly for, let's start with an online slot. An online casino slot, basically you just need a start button. All you're ever doing on those things is pressing start and seeing what the result is. So autoplay on those is just press start. Keep pressing start. You can trigger a stop on a big win or something like that or whatever. But fundamentally, you just need to press one button. Low-tech's where that's built in, that's fine. The logic is built into the game. And autoplay is something that they're designed to do. The difference with these high-techs is they were never designed to have autoplay. It was never built into them. So we're now kind of grafting something on in the emulator to allow these things to autoplay. So let me introduce you to this little box up here. And what this effectively is a very simple interface to almost program how you want this machine to autoplay itself. And this will be a machine by machine configuration. It's not like a global setting or anything like that. You are going to have to do it machine by machine, but it's absolutely worth it, because I'm thinking back over the whole history of fruit machine emulation, and there's a handful of machines that I have been kind of motivated enough to put the hundreds and thousands of pounds into them that it's taken to get them fully settled down and fully into how you would find them in the wild. Because with an even a £70 AWP needs a couple of grand through it from a RAM reset to settle down. To give you an idea, this one here, it took 1,200 quid to get the first two cash pots up to 70 quid. You can see now, by the time this 25p cash pot is maxed out, we're going to be not far off £2,000 in. It's going to have taken £2,000 worth into this machine to get 3 cash pots full up. And realistically, you're almost never going to do that with a layout. Nobody has the time to do that on a machine by machine basis. And as I was saying, I have done it with a few that I really enjoyed. A couple that I mentioned in the last video, say Alien and Empire Strikes Back. I did just sit down at those and plug away at them for like a day to get a couple of grand through them to try and get them to a settled down state. And then more recently, where I hadn't done that and they were just behaving off, would be the flickers, count your cash that I did the video on the other day. That just hadn't had enough money through it from a factory reset to sort of settle down and start being prepared to do the £70 box and then the cycle down from there. Because out in the wild, it took those things hundreds of pounds to go through that cycle, which is entirely realistic. If it's in a pub and anyone can come in and play it, day in, day out, that's going to happen. But if it's just you playing a machine in an emulator, then that isn't going to happen. So now we can do this. Now we can configure MFME to do the autoplay for us, but it isn't quite as simple as just pressing on the autoplay button because every single machine is unique. So what I'm going to try and do here, first and foremost, I would very much recommend that you go to Desert Island Fruits. There's a great post by Reg here where he explains it all. He's used it there. You can see to get a club machine up to £200 to £200 cash pots, which certainly on the old model of club machines where cash pots were kind of paid for up front, and indeed on this one here, the cash pots are paid for up front. That's why they fill up so slowly. On club machines, it could take thousands of pounds through them to get the cash pots filled up. So do go to Desert Island Fruit. Reg has also made a post there about some very clever custom settings that he came up for Star Wars Club, and he goes through how the settings work. And it's not actually as complicated as it looks. So let's go specifically now to Mega Deal or No Deal, because I have used this autoplay functionality today to get this 25p cash pot, and you can see it is maxed out now. To get this maxed out, which I could not face doing manually, I was just going to leave it. I thought, you know what, I can't be bothered. This cash pot started at £5. It's now 70 quid, and it's taken the emulator, I don't know, about 2.5, 3 hours to do it. But once you've got this thing set up, you can just go away and do something else. You can just leave this running in the background. I've been downstairs making tea. I've been doing jobs around the house. I've been playing Hearthstone. I've been out to do a couple of bits on the car. This thing has just sat here all by itself running. So first and foremost, what you need if you're interested in doing this. Now, if you're still watching this, I'm guessing that you're probably interested in how to get this working. I understand that for some people, they're going to be, I do not even understand what the point of this is. I don't understand what the excitement is, and that's fine. It's not going to be for everyone. You've got to be a bit of a fruit machine emulation nerd to get excited by this. But once I realized how you could customize this thing and get it to work, I found it very, very exciting. And I think it's worth spreading the word on this, because if it weren't for the post that Reg had made at Desert Island Fruits, I would have missed this completely. And this for me is a very, very significant development in fruit machine emulation, because it opens up a whole new level of play where you can get any machine that you want into a fully settled down state where it's had £1,000, £2,000, £5,000, £10,000, however much money you want to put through a machine, you can do it with this autoplay functionality. So how do you do it? First and foremost, make sure that you've got all your keys defined. I've just done a little text file here, and to be honest with you, this layout straight out the gate had everything configured very sensibly. So all the settings that you can see here, I've just gone into design mode, so it's just design edit mode, and I've gone around the buttons, the properties and all the buttons, and just written down what all the shortcuts are. Once you've got those, and you can go to design autoplay, and that pops up that little window here. And in simple terms, you can now specify a sequence that you want this thing to go in, and what buttons you want it to press and in what way. Just incidentally, that cycles thing there, this is done, and you can see that's adding up. This has now done 4,073 credits for me, or 4,074. Well, not credits, but cycles, because I'll explain how that works now. So in simple terms, what the emulator does, it starts at the top, so key. So P is, see there, play donned. 1, 2, 3, or obviously hold 1, 2, and 3. I put another P in. I put a D in for deal. A T for transfer there. A C for collect. Oop, there we are. Space, obviously, is going to be start. D for deal again. I'm going to explain why I've got more than one of these things in. And then 0 for putting money in. And what you'll also see next to these is count/chance. And what happens is the emulator steps through this sequence and it puts a 200 millisecond delay between each one. So it goes bup, 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 and then goes back to the start. Bup, 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 goes back to the start. And if you look at these presses, you can see these incrementing on the right hand side here. Even when you're in a feature or whatever, it's pressing buttons that won't do anything because it's not interrogating the game code, as it were. So what you've got to do is be smart enough to build the autoplay settings that work for the machine. So what this does in essence, the first thing it does in any cycle is presses P for play deal or no deal. It then has, and that there, count 1. That means it will all, in fact, let's just stop this. There we are, we'll stop it. Okay, so when I press start now, it's going to press P for play deal or no deal. It's then, and that will happen because you can see how many, do you want it to do it and how many times? So from 1 to 10, or what do you want the probability of it pressing that button being? 20, 40, 60 or 80%. I've got that on 1 because I always want it to do it. So on every cycle, it's going to press the P button, which is play deal or no deal. It's going to press it once. Then I've got a 40% chance of it pressing hold 1 or nudge 1, 2 and 3. It's then going to press P again. It's then going to press deal on the deal or no deal game. It's then going to press T, which is transfer. It's then got a 40% chance of pressing collect. It then is going to press space for start. It's then going to press D again, and then it's got a 20% chance of putting a credit in, which is 0, which is £1. Now, because I have designed this just to fill up the cash pots, there are some buttons that I've left off deliberately. I could have put them on there, but I didn't. I didn't put cash or bust on. I don't want it to cash or bust because cash or bust can give the cash pot. And the whole point of this was to fill the cash pot up for me. So I never want it to cash or bust. But if I did, I could put a B in there and I could give it a probability or a definite press each cycle round. Similarly, I don't want it to no deal because I never want it to no deal down. So that end there, you won't see anything there. I don't want it to no deal because I don't want it to no deal down to a cash pot, which will of course collect the cash pot when it's 35 quid or 40 quid. The goal here was to get the cash pot to 70 quid. So there's a couple of buttons that I've left off completely. Cancel, there's no need for. Now this will take a little bit of tweaking. It took me 2 or 3 iterations to get to this state here, and you can save out your work, as it were. You've got a whole new .aut file, which you can see there, so you can save out your autoplay settings, and they are on a machine by machine basis, and you can have more than one set of settings for one machine. So if you want to try something different, you don't like it, you can go back to a previous save. But the idea is that you get yourself a set of settings that once you kick it off, does what you want it to do. So all I want this to do, in essence, is play itself. Whenever the deal or no deal feature comes up, it will collect it by pressing P for play deal or no deal, and then it will deal at the first opportunity with D. On these machines, the start button actually seems to double up as a no deal, so sometimes it will do a no deal as well. And that's partly why I've put 2 instances of the play deal or no deal and 2 instances of the deal button to guarantee that it's playing deal or no deal and then it's dealing. So it's never no dealing down to what's in the box. And that worked fine. I left that running for, I think, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. And it filled up the cash pot from £5 to £70. I also used this earlier in the day on Donned Gold, and it filled up the cash pot. And in fact, let's just close this one down. So you've seen that one. And let's just load in Donned Gold, which I did before. So, and let's have a look at the autoplay settings that I got on this. And this took 1 hour and 45 minutes, I believe, to fill up the 50p pot from a factory reset. So once this is loaded in, you'll see that we should see that the pots on £1 and 50p are maxed out. Or I just need to add the little checkbox to stop the refill cache. Let's put £1 in. and change stake. So yeah, 25p still needs doing. That was where that was where Megadond was before. 2.5 hours later, it had filled it up to 70 quid. But it has now. I used this before to get the 50p cash pot to 70 quid and the £1 cash pot to 70 quid. Very much the same thing there. One thing that I did do there was this little tip that Reg gave me. You can see there that I changed the 0 to a 9, which doesn't do anything. That's a dead input on this. And that was simply because I didn't understand how the lockout works. Now, real machines, once they get a certain amount in the bank, they will not allow you to put a pound coin in. The little light on the coin slot will go out and you can't put a pound coin in. If you put a pound in, it'll just divert it straight down to the payout tray. So what you need to do, and I haven't done it on this one yet because Reg just gave me this tip, you have to click that button there, lock out, and apply that. So what then happens is the emulator now does the same that the real machine would do. On Megadond, it was 50 quid. Once you got 50 quid in plays, it wouldn't then allow you to put another pound in or transfer anything over. The problem if you don't have the lockout configured is that if you put a pound in, the machine will alarm. So you don't want the machine to alarm. The idea is, of course, it's kind of fire and forget. You configure it, you set it going, and then you can just go away and do something else for however long it may be. And ideally, certainly on a clubber, if you're filling up the cash pot on a clubber, you want this thing to be able to run for 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours, however long it may be, without any intervention on your part. So overall, I would say that this pretty much writes itself in terms of what it's useful for. It fills that gap in fruit machine emulation that has always been there. Right from day one for my money is how do you get the machines that you're playing to a natural state without sitting down in front of them for hours and hours and plugging away at them to get them into what would be a natural state out in the wild. So this is a fantastic addition to the emulator. I am really glad that Wizard has coded this in. And I can think of so many machines right off the top of my head that I would like to use this with. Club machines in particular, which I've never really had a lot of love for because I've never played them out in the wild, but wanted to get into them in the emulator, but was always, how do you get over that hump whereby this thing needs £2,000 into it before it will settle down and start playing normally. Or more recently, things like the flickers. I can now get this configured for count your cash and just leave it to play, do like simulated numpty play for 5 hours or 10 hours or overnight, whatever it may be. I could set this thing going before I go to work, lock my PC, turn my screen off, and when I come back it will have been playing itself all day and got through hundreds and hundreds of pounds. It's fairly quick. As you can see here, I've now got Mega Deal or No Deal running on £1 a go. I've got the inhibit coin going on. Can you see that light going out there on the coin slot? That's when you get more than 50 quid in the plays pot there. It turns that lamp off, and that's why you need that little checkbox that I showed you before for the lockout. So you need to simulate the lockout, and because I've got the T button specified there, the transfer, anything that goes into the bank, every cycle through, it will transfer whatever it's got into the bank over into there, and you'll probably see that happen now. When it plays a credit, it's going to transfer a couple of quid over. Oh no, it's just gone straight back into the feature, no problem. And just for things like this, if you want to get the cash pots maxed out in a deal or no deal, whatever it may be, this is the way to do it. On the surface of it, it's a kind of trivial thing. It doesn't seem that exciting, but if you are into your fruit machine emulation like I am, I think you will look at this and appreciate how important this is and how big of an addition to MFME this is. I would urge you again, if you want more information, do register over at Desert Island Fruits and have a look at Reggie's post here, because sometimes it's easier just to see things written down. It's a great thread. Reg is a really great chap, very friendly. He's happy to explain things. So I would urge you to do that. But for me, this one, once I understood what this was, I was like, wow, this is a really, really great addition to the emulator. Very exciting stuff, and allows a lot of things to happen now. So think about even like Empire Strikes Back that I did a video on last week, where that needs an amount of play through it to settle down, so it's happy to let you do the method on it. And it's hard for that to happen when you're playing it in the emulator, because you're just cycling around doing the method. Now you can just put £500 through it or £1,000 through it. No hassle. It will do it for you. Pi Factory and clones. I did say in my Pi Factory video that none of these are going to go on. Sometimes they went on in the wild, but they're not getting enough play in the emulator. It's just me cycling around the method every time. I can now fire up giant gems, get the right settings here. It will require custom settings on a machine-by-machine basis. You'll have to spend a little bit of time on it, but seriously, it's not that difficult. And it's quite good fun to play with. I actually found it quite enjoyable to get the right settings for this machine. So yeah, fire up giant gems, get the right settings, kick it off, leave it overnight, and that'll gamble £1,000 for you overnight, whatever it may be. So lots and lots of possibilities here. This is really good. And you're seeing this machine here, it's just playing itself now. I'm not touching anything. And the way it's playing itself here is a result of the logic that I've tried to build into these things. These key presses, the probabilities, or it will definitely happen, or a chance of it happening. It's a very, very powerful tool, this. So hopefully this video has explained to you why this is such a cool thing, and why it's such an important thing for Fruit Machine emulation, because it does fill in that gap that has always been there. The thing that Fruit Machine emulation always needed was to give every machine a bit of history so that you could get it into a proper state. Because out in the wild with their battery-backed RAM, these things would have thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of pounds through them in the longest-lived machines. And now we can do that in any machine that we want. So I will say thank you very much to Wizard for adding this feature to the emulator. Thank you very much to Reg for bringing it to my attention at his site Desert Island Fruits. This is a superb addition to MFME. I'm super excited about it. I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do with this now. I am just that nerdy. I'm quite happy to admit it. But there you go. That's all for this video, and I will get back to actual machine videos next time. But I thought that this was significant enough to go straight to the top of the pile and get a video all for itself. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I will see you next time. Have a very happy new year. It's 8:20 on the 31st of December 2017 as I video this. Yeah, it's New Year's Eve, and I want to do nothing more than bugger about with Fruit Machine emulators, because that's the best thing I can think to do. That's the most enjoyable thing for me. So there you go. I hope this was interesting for you at least as well. And I'll see you next time.